I'm trucking on, and I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line, another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on, I'm trucking on.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to Truckin' On. I'm your host, Ward Richmond. I really appreciate you tuning in today, and I hope you enjoy the show. What's up, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Truckin' On. This happens to be my first episode on video of Truckin' On, so hope you enjoy this. I'm going to start marketing this podcast a little more than I have been, and I've been told by all the marketing gurus that I need to have video to properly market my podcast. So here we go. I actually had a guest plan for today, but he canceled on me. That happens when you're a podcaster, and decided to shift gears at the last minute since I had my main man Logan here, who's filming this for me, already set up to come over to my casa and film, and so I just did what I always do when something happens, and I shifted and figured out something else. And speaking of marketing, I am going to do a solo cast today, and I'm going to go over what I call the Deadly Tiger Squad's marketing process deck. So this is a deck that I put together with my business coach, Dan Coughlin, a couple years ago. And it's really just to synthesize the process. We built this to synthesize the process on how we market our business and really how I built my business over the years. And I'm going to share that with you. And I hope that you gain some new knowledge. And I will tell you that if you follow this step by step like I did, then you actually do everything I'm going to tell you to do. It's going to be hard to fail. So, but it's not easy either. Simple, yet not easy. So let's get into it. In case you didn't know, we call ourselves the Deadly Tiger Squad, the team that I work with within Colliers. And we specialize in representing occupiers of industrial real estate. So this presentation deck is about building a business that does what we do. However, if you're in the commercial real estate business or sales in general, I think you can use this, but you're just going to have to change some things. And I'll mention those things that you can change that are part of this deck that are very specific to my particular business. And they're pretty easy to shift around and put your own business into it and use these same principles. We're going to start with step one, which is professional sales development. And when I say professional sales development, this is the foundation that you need to make a part of your life if you want to succeed in sales. And really, I believe that sales is anything you do in life, but here in particular, like I mentioned, I'm talking about commercial real estate sales. So, number one, constantly read self-help books. I know this may sound cheesy. However, it has paid massive dividends for me. There's so many great books out there. A few that I might name are Think and Grow Rich, Tools of Titans, Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. Those are some fantastic ones. I have a whole list of books on my website, supplychainrealestate.com, that you can go check out. But I constantly read books. I read about, I would say, 25 to 35 books a year, nonfiction books. And that is important to the foundation of being good at sales, is to continually learn from others. Another way to do this is to listen to podcasts. Some of my favorite podcasts are, once again, Tony Robbins. In case you didn't know, I love Tony Robbins. The MF CEO Project, which is a podcast that no longer exists in terms of new content, but you can go back and check it out. That's hosted by Andy Frisella, who is the CEO of First Form. And I listened to that podcast from episode 1 to the end during the pandemic when we were all quarantined. And it's such a game changer. So many great tidbits of knowledge. I probably use some of that stuff inside of this presentation right now. Also, the Ed Milet Show, another buddy of Andy Frisella's, but so many. Tim Ferriss has a great podcast. Listen to podcasts, read self-help books, attend seminars. I've attended seminars by multiple by Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone, just to name a few, to learn about marketing and operations for your business. Take non-mandatory continuing education. Of course, you have to take mandatory continuing education if you're in commercial real estate to keep your license, but you need to go above and beyond. Go pursue a CCIM. I don't have one, but I've taken a lot of CCIM classes, which I needed to get my SIOR designation. So I have an SIOR. I've attended Essentials of Warehousing course with the IWLA. And that was fantastic for me to get a better understanding of what my customers do for a living, which is run warehouses. And I also attended Georgia Tech along the same lines. I completed their executive program on supply chain. So that was totally non-real estate related, but it was well worth the investment because it taught me how to speak the language that my customers speak a little bit better. Another thing you need to do, hire a business coach and or a life coach. I have one of each. And this has just been an incredible investment for me. I've worked with multiple coaches over the years and currently work with Dan Coughlin. You can go listen to our episode on the podcast. If you missed it, just search for Dan Coughlin. And this gives you an opportunity. I don't care if you have a mentor or if you have this great boss or your company has a great training program. That's all well and fine, but you need to invest in having someone help you who is there to look out for you, and that's their only job. And if you're part of a team, that's especially important because at the end of the day, I run a team of 6 people and I am concerned about the training of all the people on the team. But when it comes to the personal goals related to what my teammates want to do with their lives or how much income they need to support their families and all of that, like I'm not getting into all those weeds, but a good business coach / life coach will help you with those things. And it's paid off huge for me. I've talked about it a lot on this podcast and you can go back and listen to all the episodes and I probably mention it on almost every one. So hire consultants. So I hired a social media consultant named David Meerman Scott, who I met at the Tony Robbins conference. I've hired a presentation consultant, Mike Lipsy, and I'm going to dig into what I learned from Mike Lipsy in this presentation. So I would still recommend that you go talk to Mike if you've got a big presentation coming up to hone your skills and put together a badass presentation deck to go win new business. Also, I've worked with consultants on public speaking. It's why I'm such an amazing podcaster. That's why, because I spent lots of money learning how to speak. But really, I started out being scared to speak in public. I did not want my thoughts out there. I never would have thought of doing a podcast. I never would have thought of posting on LinkedIn. I would have said back then that it was lame, but the reason why I said that was because I was operating out of a state of fear. So if you find yourself thinking that it's lame to post on LinkedIn or go speak on a panel or whatever, go ask yourself, is this because it's lame or because I am scared? And chances are it's because you're scared. So anyway, hire consultants. They'll help you overcome your fear and limiting beliefs and help you go to the next level. Let's see. We've done sales training programs for our team. We invested in Cardone University through the Grant Cardone organization, and that is fantastic. And we did this all through COVID. I think we did it for 18 months, and now everyone on the team's gone through it. And that was great, doing sales training. So I just can't talk to you about this enough. You have to keep sharpening the blade or you're going to be missing out because there's just new content that's coming out all the time. And there's new ways that you can improve your skill set. And there's just like limitless books to read on the topic. And I think once you start reading it, Well, I don't know. I'll only speak for myself, but the more I pour myself into learning about sales, the more passionate I become about learning about sales. And then it's just, you just get hooked on it. It's like working out. It really is. And if you go to the gym a lot, then you know what I'm talking about. The first day you go to the gym after you've been a couch potato for a long time, which believe me, I've been there, sucks. But once you start going on a regular basis, for the longer you go, the more ingrained it becomes as part of your life. And I just don't even know how to operate without A, going to the gym, B, doing all of these activities I'm talking about right here. I do all of this stuff, and I've been doing this for 17 years, and I could say I know what I'm talking about. I guess I've like written a deck on it and all of this, but hey, number one rule of this deck is to focus on professional sales development. I still do that every day. Let's see. And then you got to build yourself some type of a database to get started so that you can track, measure, and review all of your sales activities. So that's part of step 1 too. All right. Now, moving on. The first process in sales, in commercial real estate, in anything, I think, is to define your target market. That means you need to know who you're selling to, and you want to be specific, because that's going to save you a lot of time and effort. So who are you targeting? The target market for my team means that you need to be a very large occupier of industrial real estate. So we look at companies that really only occupy 100,000 square foot plus facilities, have that minimum size in their portfolio. So we do not play small. I started out working 2 submarkets in Dallas where the average size of the building was probably like 25,000 or 30,000 square feet, pretty small, including like 5,000 square foot buildings. I tracked all of those, but I found that it's just as tough to get a meeting with one mom and pop company that operates a 20,000 foot warehouse as it is to go get hired by a large corporation that might have 100 large warehouses. It's still you having to convince one person to meet with you and hire you. And so I suggest that you go big or go home. And if you're on my team, you don't have an option. So like I said earlier, build a database using the database you've already prepared and put them all into the database. And this can be an Excel spreadsheet if you don't want to invest in Act or something like that. And that's frankly what I use, is an Excel spreadsheet. Even though I've used and invested in all kinds of different fancy databases, at the end of the day, they're all just an Excel spreadsheet. And that, you may have some extra bells and whistles, but I don't need those. Step number 3, once you define your target market, you need to pre-qualify these companies. So you need to do some basic online research and contact them, as I'm about to explain to you. Number one thing on contacting these companies and pre-qualifying them is you need to determine who the HMFIC is. And in case you don't know that acronym, you probably don't. I don't know. You might actually. That's the head motherfucker in charge. And this is the person that you want to talk to at that company. So that's part of your pre-qualification round, is figure out who's in charge. Okay. And don't waste time calling on people that are not in charge. Go to the top. Blast the song All the Way Up by Fat Joe if you were confused. But go all the way up to the top, okay? Maybe we can drop that song in here. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble with Fat Joe because that could be dangerous. But remember that working your way from the top down, let's say CEO down, is going to be way better for you than working your way from the bottom up to the CEO. So for instance, if you're calling on an industrial real estate company, you don't want to go call on the branch manager that's local to your area when they have 50 branches across the country, because that's going to be a waste of time. That branch manager is not going to be responsible for all 50 branches. And if you're me, you want to figure out who's in charge of all 50 branches. I don't want to deal with just the one branch. I want to deal with all the branches. So find out who's in charge, go there, put that guy's name, gal's name in your database, get their cell phone number, get their email, and there you have it. And then you want to constantly evolve this target market, because companies are going to go out of business. New companies are going to come into the game and they're going to dominate. And you have to pay attention to your target market and constantly track it and constantly evolve your list. Okay, moving on. This next section is on how to contact your target market and set a meeting. So we already discussed you're going to identify who your target market is. Then you got to schedule a meeting with the HMFIC. Okay. Ideally, when I'm cold calling, especially when I was starting out, it's a little different for me today. But when you're starting out, I would recommend that you want to speak to a minimum of 3 HMFICs a day. So that requires some calling, and I'm going to get into that coming up. But you want to verify all pertinent HMFIC contact info. I mentioned this earlier, but again, email, cell phone are the top priorities. Befriend them on LinkedIn. Go request them on LinkedIn. The 3 main goals when speaking with said HMFIC, when you get them on the phone, number 1, you deliver a killer elevator speech and or elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to get into that and tell you exactly what my elevator pitch is, and then you can shape yours based upon who exactly you're calling on. Number 2, you want to re-qualify that you're speaking to the HMFIC. So you want to make sure that they're in charge, right? And I'm going to get into how to qualify them. And then number 3, you schedule an in-person meeting. It's very important when you're calling someone and you're getting them on the phone, you're not trying to close the deal on the phone. We're not like operating like Wolf of Wall Street, hard selling someone to hire you. All you're doing is setting the foundation of building a relationship with this person who might be able to help you out, and especially who you might be able to help out, and get an in-person meeting with them to further discuss everything. So your only goal is set the meeting. That's it. Not sell your services to them. So you do this by, number 1, deliver a killer elevator pitch. So develop a clear and concise elevator pitch. The pitch can be easily rattled off whenever you get a decision maker on the phone, send an email, or even when you need to explain what you do to a stranger at a cocktail party. You need to be ready and calculated when explaining what it is that you do in these 3 steps. Number 1, clearly introduce yourself and state why you're calling. My name is Ward Richmond with Colliers. I specialize in working with occupiers of industrial real estate to generate massive value as it relates to the commercial real estate process. There you go. That's my elevator pitch. Drop value proposition. A value proposition is about the value you create for your target market. So my value proposition is just this. We have literally generated tens of millions of dollars in savings for our customers while working together to optimize their corporate real estate process. Boom. And then you want to drop the volume proposition. The volume proposition is about how much of this value creation you have done. So what I would say is we've worked with hundreds of companies throughout North America on transactions representing some of the most dominant occupiers of industrial real estate in the world. Some of my clients include the following. Boom, boom, boom. For me, I've dropped my big name customers that I've had the fortune of getting to do business with. We've gotten to represent on some deals. So I want to mention some familiar names. If you're just getting started in the business and you don't have a big book of recognizable brand name clients, I would imagine that you're partnered with someone within the firm who does. So lean on the senior brokers at your firm and just mention the names of the companies that they're working with. Okay? Sweet. Then qualify. So qualifying your prospect is so important because if you're not properly qualifying your prospect, you have the potential to waste a lot of time. So I've got some steps here on how to qualify. First, you want to qualify, is this person I'm talking to the HMFIC? And if that's the case, here's how you find out. So number 1, ask them, what geographical areas are you responsible for? This will tell you how much coverage they have. Number 2, who are the key team members within the organization responsible for the corporate real estate decision-making process? So if this person doesn't happen to know that, then they're definitely not the HMFIC. The HMFIC is going to know who all is part of the process of getting a real estate deal done. And while they're telling you this, then take notes so that you know who else is involved. Because sometimes there's more than one HMFIC, and you want to know who all of them are. Number 3, which individual has the authority to sign the lease or sign a contract? That is huge. I want to know who is signing these contracts. That person has a lot of power and authority. And if you don't get answers to all 3 of these questions, then this person you're speaking to is the wrong person to be talking to. So figure out who's in charge and move on. Maybe you can ask this person, well, who would know the answer to that? And then you'll get it. Okay. Number 2, qualify this company actually meets your criteria for being in your target market. So the questions I ask, how many properties are in your portfolio? What percentage of these properties are industrial properties? Because that's really, I'm interested in working with companies that lease industrial properties or own industrial properties. If you're doing office or retail and listening to this, just go ask them about that. You can easily shift over to other product types besides industrial. What percentage is owned versus leased? I want to know that. If they own 4 properties, then that's not a good target for me. I want companies that lease and have lots of turnover and lots of action going on for me to go help with. 3, what types of facilities? So is it distribution, manufacturing, corporate office? How is that divvied up? Distribution is primarily what I work on, but we also do manufacturing deals as well. And we do corporate office deals to support these industrial companies when they need some office space. I always say that every warehouse has office space in it. So I am also an office broker, believe me. And here's another thing. Is your company focused on growing, maintaining, or downsizing your portfolio? And if somebody tells me they're like maintaining or downsizing, adios, amigo. You're not part of my target market, because I go after dominant companies, and so should you. Because I don't want to go with some company that's just like fine with the status quo, or especially if they're downsizing. Not cool. I don't want to be in the downsizing business. Neither should you. Okay, next step. Once you've done all of this and gathered all this information, chances are the HMFIC is not going to say, wow, Ward, thanks for asking me so many great questions. Why don't you come meet with me? Now, it's happened before, but probably 1 out of 1,000 times does that happen. What you have to do is follow up until you set a meeting. So here are some notes on how to follow up with these HMFICs. And just keep in mind, this shit does not happen overnight. If it does happen overnight, there's something wrong going on. Because if somebody's agreeing to meet with you, like from a cold call, this person is like they're not going to be, that almost disqualifies them in my mind, because any prospect I'm going after, they need to be hard to get in and get a meeting set with. So you got to keep following up with phone calls, with emails, use automated emails, what else? You want to connect with them on LinkedIn. I mentioned that earlier. You want to be posting on LinkedIn so you're up in their face constantly. You want to start an email drip campaign. I've invested in things like Instagram ads and Facebook ads. I think that's a waste of money. I think the way to go after B2B prospects, like what we do in commercial real estate, is via LinkedIn. That is the number one social media. And I think I've heard lots of great things about Twitter as well. So go try out Twitter. For me, I just double down on LinkedIn. I am friends with a lot of my clients on Instagram, and I think that helps with continuing to grow relationships. So I'm a big fan of Instagram and LinkedIn, but I think Twitter works as well. And but the Facebook ads did absolutely nothing other than like get me views from other commercial real estate brokers. Attend relevant trade shows and conferences. So I don't go to that many real estate conferences necessarily. I go to a lot of supply chain conferences because I'm going after companies in the supply chain. I'm not trying to get hired by people in the real estate business. I'm trying to get hired by people in the supply chain industry. So those are the conferences I go to. I seek out sponsorship opportunities, A, to support the organization that's putting on the conference. B, these sponsorship opportunities will oftentimes come with the opportunity to have in-person meetings with people and also speaking opportunities so that you can get up on stage and speak and drop knowledge right there in front of a whole crowd of your target market. Become an expert. Do this by writing articles, writing blogs, attend seminars, take continuing education. I already talked about all that. You can, if you just go research something that you don't know about or you've never even worked on that type of deal, you can write an article about it and all of a sudden become an expert. I can tell you that before I ever did a 1 million square foot transaction, I wrote an article called The Rise of the Big Bomber, which you can find on my blog, about why companies are leasing 1 million square foot distribution centers. Now, I'd never done a 1 million square foot distribution center deal before, but I knew people that had. So I called these people and I asked them all about 1 million square foot deals. And then I wrote an article on it. Then that article got published by a logistics magazine because I went and called the logistics magazine and asked them to do it. I called the Wall Street Journal. I cold called them. I met with them in New York, and then I got quoted in the Wall Street Journal. You've just got to go do this. And then I'm known as a person that's an expert on 1 million square foot facilities. And frankly, even though I hadn't done an actual 1 million square foot deal yet, I would like to think that I knew as much about doing a 1 million square foot deal as anyone that had done a 1 million square foot deal, because I talked to them all and asked them 1 million questions. And then I wrote an article about it, published article. So you got to go do these things. Think outside the box, be creative, and be an expert. Because you have to create value for your target market, or none of this, you're wasting your time by even worrying about selling something if you don't know how to create value for them once they buy what you're selling. Another thing, I mentioned LinkedIn. If you're not active on LinkedIn, I would recommend you start forcing yourself to post on LinkedIn daily and post authentic content. Don't just like repost an article and put that up there. That's lame. Nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to care. You want to display your own unique personality, which we all have. And that feels very uncomfortable at first when you do it. But the more often you do it, the easier it gets. Just back to the gym metaphor. Or is it an analogy? I never know. And then what else? Proactively reach out to journalists. I told you this already. That's what I did. Journalists are a great way. Go ask them, hey, I'm working in the industrial real estate sector. Are you writing any articles on that? And befriend the journalist and reach out to the target audience that you're going after and ask them, what conferences do you attend when you're on these cold calls? Well, if you can't meet with me, is there any conferences that you're going to? And then that gives you an opportunity to go get in front of them. Okay. Next up, overcoming objections. Because whenever you're in the sales process, you're always going to be met with objections from people. It just happens. So here are some common objections that I have faced. And here is what I do when I face said objections. And number one, I already have a broker. Well, here's what I say to that. Congratulations. I would expect nothing less. What's his or her name? I want to know who the broker is. What company are they with? Okay. How long have you worked with said broker? Who initially hired said broker? And how did that come about? I want to know who hired this person. Do you have an exclusive services contract with said broker in place? I want to know. If so, when does that contract expire? By the way, does this contract allow you to diversify your vendors to benchmark performance of said broker? Most global service agreements should provide you with this option. And if it doesn't, then you're in trouble. I highly suggest, by the way, to my clients that they diversify their vendors. You don't have to just work with the deadly tiger squad to succeed in life. I think it's important, especially the companies we're going after. They have massive portfolios. There's so much money on the line to go just trust one person to do it over and over for 20 years and not ever benchmark their performance with someone else. I think it's irresponsible. I let people know that. I very much enjoy the opportunity to share accounts with competitors of mine, and they keep me on my toes. I hope I do the same for them. And then at the end of the day, that generates massive value for our clients. So there you go. Moving on. Number 2 objection I get is we don't use brokers. All you fuckers care about is your fee. Oh, that's when I hear that, I try not to laugh in their face. But what I say, I take a deep breath and I pause and I say, I understand your sentiments. I can't do it without laughing. I'm sorry. But I also say, hey, we guarantee we will not take a fee unless we generate value for you. It's that simple. And I don't want your money. I don't want anyone's money if I'm not doing something to earn my money. So you can talk about brokers that screwed you over for fees and that's all they care about. That's not me. Those people might be out there, not me. And if you're one of those brokers that thinks about fees and is super transactional minded like that, then go like stop doing that. I am revenue focused. I am a capitalist. I want to make money, but I want to make repeat revenue over a long period of time. And thankfully, to give you some stats on our business, I believe last year we did 95-ish transactions. We represented 30 different clients. 94% of those transactions were repeat business, and that accounted for, I believe, 12 million square feet worth of deals, and I believe close to $1 billion in transaction volume. So that's the kind of business I want, and yeah, I want clients that are going to be a repeatable source of revenue for many, many years, and that's the way to do it. And you can't do that if you just care about a fee. All you need to care about is creating value. So let these people that don't use brokers know that. I also said we generate a lot of value outside of the monetary savings that might relate to a particular deal. We generate a lot of value related to actually developing processes with you and your team, client, to improve process efficiencies. And that has nothing to do with deals. That has to do with setting up a foundation of how your real estate department operates and makes decisions. And I have a whole nother presentation I can go through on how we do that. And maybe I will one day. And then the number 3 thing is of objections is we use brokers, but only on new deals, not renewals. So this one also is just ridiculous to me. Why you wouldn't use a broker on a renewal. I mean, rule number 1, well, what I say when they tell me this is I say, I get it, but I'm curious. So I always try to agree with people, even if I don't necessarily agree, but I want to try to understand. And I think the best way to understand their train of thought is to say, okay, explain to me. I'm curious, what's your reasoning for not hiring an expert to represent you on a lease renewal, but you do it on a new deal? And then I say, do you have a clearly defined process in place on how you negotiate a lease renewal? Okay, what is that? And then I said, do you know 75% of my business actually is negotiating lease renewals? So that's like what we do for breakfast, my friend. And like having negotiated, I would say over 1,000 easy lease renewals in my career. Like, how can you, if you're a company and let's say you have 50 properties and you do all of your own renewals, like you just are doing a fraction. You're doing a renewal every 5 years. Like, you're doing 10, let's say 10 renewals a year. I'm doing 100. Then it's just, you want to use an expert to do these things. And that's how you point it out. And then I tell a case study. I might tell a case study. Look, I represent another company and they used to not do this, but here's how we saved them $5 million negotiating a lease renewal. And guess what? We got paid and you got a better deal than you were going to get if you weren't using a broker. That's the whole point. And then above all, I just say, look, whether you hire me or not, you need to treat every renewal like it's a new deal. That's how you negotiate a renewal. Is you need to have a backup plan where you can relocate, and it needs to be a worthy backup plan. And you can't just go fake it if you really want to make the most out of the negotiation. Number 4 objection I get: we just use the best local broker for each project. We don't need a corporate broker. See, I want to be the corporate broker. Obviously, if I haven't made that clear, I want to be the one point of contact that companies call to work on multiple projects throughout North America or the globe for that matter. And so I believe they're selling themselves short if they're just going to one-off sub-market experts for deals and not working with an expert to help them manage the macro process of how those brokers on the ground get selected and putting the right teams in place and helping to work together to develop best-in-class processes. So I ask, how many different brokers do you work with under this model? And then, some people, they have 50 different brokers. So they're calling 50 different brokers when they're managing a whole corporate real estate portfolio. That in my opinion, they should be putting that job on someone else. And really most companies, most large companies that we work with, that's exactly what they do. And that's because it's the best way to do it. So then I'll ask, which one of these local brokers is the best and why? How many deals a year do you do in each market? This goes back to the renewals. It's like, okay, so you're doing one deal in Dallas every 5 years. Well, Dallas, I live in Dallas, so that's not even a fair example, but let's just say Louisville, Kentucky. And so if you're doing one deal there every 5 years or something, we're working on 4 simultaneous projects there right now. We do deals in every market you can name in North America. Pretty much every year we're in those markets. And then when you're talking about a big market like LA, Chicago, New York, New Jersey, and Dallas, of course, and throughout Mexico and Canada too, we're doing multiple deals in all the major markets. So we have so much more market power in those markets than even huge companies do that might just have one facility in these markets. So important to point that out. And another thing that we do is we develop customized playbooks so that all of these local brokers on the ground understand the company culture, and we create a streamlined process for communication that is proprietary to our team, but I'm sure there's plenty of other great teams out there that do this just to streamline these efficiencies so that instead of this real estate director that's running this whole portfolio having to deal with explaining the culture to 50 different people and having to call 50 different people for 50 different deals and working in a new market all the time, we take that pressure off the real estate director's back or the CEO or whoever's in charge of the real estate, the HMFIC, as I like to say. And that's what we do. So anyway, I just preach process. And when you have a big portfolio, I believe you need a partner that is working with you at the macro level to help manage that whole portfolio. And then I would recommend that on every objection that you get, you can follow up with this. 1, do you feel like you have a well-defined real estate process? Yes or no? 2, do you have a specific method in place for measuring KPIs in a consistent manner related to the real estate process? Yes or no? And then I like to drop in a good quote while I'm on the call. Here are some of my favorites. Peter Drucker says, you can't manage what you don't measure. We specialize in helping our customers track and measure performance of their real estate portfolio. I might say Tony Robbins says, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. We are just asking for an opportunity to get our foot in the door. And then, let's see, retired U.S. Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, respect Jocko. He says discipline equals freedom. And I actually have discipline and freedom tattooed on my forearm. I don't know if you can see it. I'm new to the video, so Logan maybe zoomed in. Do you want to zoom in again? Okay, here you go. Well, shit, it's upside down when I do that, but there you go, dude. Look at that. Okay. There's my Jocko tattoo. But what I say is, look, discipline is our team's number one core value because it's our disciplined approach to life and work that allows us to produce the highest results possible for our customers. So those are just some things to say. I mean, whenever talking to an HMFIC I've never met before and I drop a quote on them, they always chuckle a little bit. So if you can get someone feeling a little good when you're on the phone, like, more power to you. That's going to work in your favor. Okay, next step in the deck is you now, after all of this shit that we've just been through, you still got to set the meeting. So if you're watching this and you're not a commercial real estate broker, like, welcome to my life. And this is what we have to do. And this whole process to setting a meeting oftentimes takes many a years and sometimes a decade. And it's just amazing the mindset that you have to persevere through the tough times. And when you're getting started in this business, patience is key. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I've done 3 Ironmans, and it's like a double Ironman, not a sprint. It's commercial real estate. It's a long sales cycle, and it's a relationship business, and it takes time to build relationships, especially if you're going after these big powerhouse companies, which you should be. And if you want to work with the best in class and be the best in class, you got to go for the best in class companies. And they're not just going to say, oh yeah, thanks for the cold call, you're hired. Like I said earlier, if they say that, you're talking to the wrong person, or something's going horribly wrong with that company. But anyway, I've said this earlier. It's so important that your number one goal when you're cold calling, that can be a cold call, or it can be when you meet someone at a conference and you sit down with them for coffee and you're introducing yourself to them for the first time. So I say cold because it's like, it could be a warm call, but it's still that first introduction. And when I say first, it could be the first 50 before they even remember who the hell they're talking to. But your only goal is to set the meeting. So you're not trying to get them to hire you. I made that mistake a lot at first. Like, I wanted to get hired on a cold call, but that's just unrealistic. And you know what I did? I watched YouTube videos on how to make cold calls, and someone explained, don't try to get hired. Just set the meeting. It's like, oh, I like that. Grant Cardone might tell you to get hired on the phone, but in commercial real estate, it's just not realistic, like I said. So set the meeting. Remind the HMFIC, we believe face-to-face interaction is extremely important in our line of work. It is. Life is too short and the world is too small to operate any other way. So we need to meet in person, and then I can explain to you how we can create massive value for your company. You need to assure the HMFIC. During our meeting, we will explain how we do things differently than our competitors, and we're going to provide case studies that are going to explain to you how we've solved similar problems to what you're facing time and time again in a unique, innovative manner that has generated millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars in savings for our customers. Okay. And then I also say in all caps in my presentation deck here, we do not present over the phone ever. Of course, I get forced into Zoom calls to do presentations, and I will do them, but I push hard for in-person meetings. I think that is so valuable, even more valuable since COVID and all these Zoom has become the norm for presentations. I wouldn't want to hire somebody that I have to, like, when you're doing our job, if you happen to be still watching this and you're not in commercial real estate, if you hire me to be a real estate broker and you have 100 facilities, we're going to be talking multiple times a week. And for some clients of mine, like, that's for a decade. So I don't want to even think about hiring somebody if I've never met them in person, because if somebody knows what they're dealing with here, you're dealing with a major personal relationship. I mean, most of my clients have become very close friends of mine. You can't not become friends when you talk to each other like 5 times a week for 10 years on the phone. It's impossible. So that being said, meet in person, push hard for that. These Zoom calls are, I mean, I don't want to say they're bullshit, but they serve a purpose when they serve a purpose. But when you're having an introductory meeting, get in front of that person. And I think, it'll bring a lot of value to both of you. And that's the main thing. Again, you're creating value for your customer by doing that, even if they don't realize that it's the right thing to do. Okay. So after all of that, you set your meeting. Congratulations. Now, of course, you have to go to the meeting and go through that whole process and try to get hired. So preparing for your meeting. So like after about a week after you set the meeting on your call or whatever, and they agree to meet with you in person, hopefully, then you have to do this really cringy thing. And that is reach out to the prospect again and ask to schedule a pre-meeting call. So I personally don't like doing this, but it's so necessary. But yeah, you've just like literally maybe spent 5 years trying to get a meeting set, and then they agree to it, and they're like, let's have a meeting before the meeting. So that's not an easy phone call to make. But I mean, at this point, I'm numb to it, and I just ask for it over and over and over again. Why? You're going to feel uncomfortable, do it anyway. But why? Because you've got to prepare for the meeting. And in order to do that, you need to have your pre-meeting call. The prospect is going to resist the pre-meeting call, but you must insist. You may need to ask them to do this 10 plus times. So then there you go again. You're just like now cold calling them again just to get the pre-meeting meeting set. But you got to make it happen if you want to up your chances to win the business when you get there. Remind the HMFIC this: a pre-meeting call will greatly optimize the use of everyone's time when we have the actual meeting. Value creation, motherfuckers, do that. That's why we're doing this. Create value. And that is why you do the pre-meeting call, to create value for your client and for yourself. So once on the pre-meeting call, you want to go through a needs analysis and ask them a comprehensive list of questions, which I have developed for my team, and that just ask every question possible that I would want to know the answer to before I step into the meeting room, so that I'm absolutely prepared and I make the best use of this prospect's time. And then after the pre-meeting call, then I'm going to have all the information I need to assemble the best team possible to go into the meeting and to put together a customized presentation deck for this particular client based upon all my findings through the needs analysis I performed on the pre-meeting call. And then I work with my team at Colliers. Yeah, Colliers. Love you, man. Anyway, I get with the Colliers marketing team, put together a badass presentation deck, specially designed for this particular prospect. And then I book the plane tickets and get ready to go to the meeting. Next, final step, deliver a killer presentation. So here's the deal. You've got to prepare for your meeting to deliver a killer presentation. You want to do a pre-meeting run through with all of your team members that you're going to be attending the meeting with. You want to discuss, where are you going to sit? Are you going to stand? Where are you going to be? And then sometimes you might stand to emphasize certain points. I want to be very prepared. I learned this, of course, through working with speaking coaches and presentation coach Mike Lipsy. So but like, I like to keep the vibe pretty relaxed. So I might stand up sometimes, but I'm not one to stand up in front of a room with a board there and wear like a double-breasted suit or a bow tie. Like, that's not my style. However, that could be your style. And then you go do that, and that can be your killer presentation. For me, I like to sit down like I am right now and be like super chill and relaxed. And this is just how I am. So, and this is what I'm going to wear too. I'm going to wear my uniform. And, some people might not like that, and those people I'm not going to work with. So they can go like hire the real estate broker with the $5,000 suit. This is the final portion of today's episode. And this portion is called Deliver a Killer Presentation. So after all of that hard work, you finally are in the position to go meet face-to-face, provide a world-class, badass killer presentation, and hopefully close the deal. So what do you need to do to prepare for your meeting? A, do a pre-meeting run-through with everyone on your team that's going to be attending the meeting, and make sure everyone understands what their role is, what they're going to be saying. Discuss what the vibe's going to be. Sometimes I go to a meeting with people that I don't normally go to meetings with, so I want to be clear. Yo, here's my vibe. I sit in a chair and just like act like my normal self and talk to people like they're human beings. Other people might have the vibe where they want to stand up and with a laser beam and point at the wall and wear a fancy suit. That's not me. So I'm going to be real clear before a meeting with whoever I'm going to this meeting with from my side of the presentation. Like, look, here's what we're wearing. Here's who's saying what. Here's the vibe of the meeting. And I'm very particular about that in case you can't tell. So, but be prepared. What do they say? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail, I believe. So there you go. Get ready with your team. Again, ensure all presentations are done in person, not WebEx. So you want this to be in person. You want to always arrive. A lot of my meetings are out of town. So I know a lot of you have local business, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you do travel to go give these presentations like I do, arrive the night before the meeting. You don't want to like be dealing with the airlines missing, like having a mechanical problem or weather delays or whatever. And then you go miss this one moment you have. And also when I'm booking these meetings, a lot of times they get booked like months in advance. And I don't want to miss this opportunity. So get there the night before. Okay. I like to schedule meetings before lunch, but not first thing in the morning. So mid-morning is always the best time to have the meeting, in my opinion. I think it's done a lot for me personally because that's when I prefer to have big meetings myself. So that works for me. But I also think first thing in the morning, you've got things to do, emails to return, shit to take care of. Then you eat lunch. And after lunch, who doesn't want to take a nap? And I don't want to be presenting to someone when they're like in nap mode. What I like to do is present to them before lunch when they're hungry for making a deal, and then take them to lunch and have a nice loungy lunch. And then you can go take a nap. Because hopefully you've closed the deal and you'll sleep very well that afternoon. So let's see. What's next? Understand the setting in which the meeting is taking place. Not Zoom, motherfuckers. Don't do Zoom. Oh, I just can't stress that enough. But you want to know, like, what size room are you in? Are you in a boardroom with 50 chairs and presenting to 20 people? Or is it a one-on-one meeting in like a huddle room? You want to be aware. You want to understand what the technology is that's going to be there so that you're prepared. Always bring up the backup laptop, and the thumb drives and all of that kind of stuff if you're having an electronic presentation, which I assume most people are these days. You want to understand the audience, of course. I mentioned already how many people are going to be there, but you want to know who all is going to be there. If you've never heard of some of them before, go befriend them on LinkedIn, go look at their bios, see where they went to college, at least understand their background, what their role is at the company, how long they've been there. And be prepared to call everyone by their first name when you're in the meeting. There's nothing worse than like being in a meeting and you don't know someone's name and you're like, hey, brother, over there, what are you doing? What do you think about that, sister? Hey, professor. No, just call them by their name. Like, Logan, what are you doing over there by the cameras, man? And now Logan respects that I'm calling him by his name. I can just tell by the gleam in his eye. So know their names. Call them by said names. It's impactful. What else? Okay, everyone, here is the last slide of my deck, which I'm reading to you basically on this podcast today. So this is the final slide on preparing for your meeting and in order to deliver a killer presentation. And the first step of this last section is go to bed early the night before. Don't go out on the town. So you've made it to whatever city you're going to, you've traveled, you're already tired anyway. You might be able to have dinner with the prospect the night before. That is a good move, but don't go out after dinner, if you know what I'm saying. Go to bed early. Wake up early the morning before. Meditate, reflect, do some journaling on gratitude, practice visualization exercises. I do all of these things. I give thanks for the amazing opportunity that is about to take place. Most of the time, I'm still in a state of shock. The meeting is actually happening, and I thank God. I get down on my knees and pray. And I don't want to take this moment for granted because of all the hard work that's been put into getting to this place to go into this meeting. All the time invested by myself, my teammates, and by the prospective client, all to get to this place. So I give thanks to my friend, to God, for my family, my friends, my colleagues that have all supported me all along this path to get here. I visualize absolute, unwavering strength to communicate effectively to the prospects when I'm in the meeting. I think through anything that can get thrown my way, and I just visualize myself responding to these questions with absolute confidence and calmness and speaking in a manner that generates an emotional response from my prospect and connects deeply with them and solves the problems that they're looking to be solved. So I think through all this stuff and just above all, just practice that gratitude and be thankful for this opportunity and don't take it lightly and just have respect for yourself for all the hard work you've done so far to get here. After doing my meditating, then I like to go work out. I love to do sauna and cold plunge. I have access to that at my house. If the meeting's in Dallas, it's very easy. If I'm on the road, I always try to look for those hotels that have these things. And there are lots of hotels, especially in major cities, that have sauna, cold plunge as part of my process. And then I like to find a hot yoga studio nearby because that just is my favorite way to work out, really. And then especially these days of meetings, it just really forces me to be in the present moment, clears my head. And then I always feel super energized and calm and ready to rock and roll. But at a minimum, go outside and go for a walk or something if you're not a big exerciser like me. But get the blood flowing, get up early, do all of these things. Dress to impress. And that's dress how you feel is the appropriate way to dress. This is normally how I dress. However, I might be going to a meeting that I feel like I need to wear something a little more formal, and I'll do just that. But I'm going to know my crowd. I'm going to dress appropriately. So dress appropriately. Hopefully I can get away with wearing this. That's what I always try to do, but sometimes that's not the case. Be mindful. But it is important how you present yourself. So you don't want to walk into the room wearing a Henley if the person you're meeting with is wearing a tuxedo, because that's what they wear every Thursday. Just know these things. And check with the people that you're meeting with on your pre-meeting call to find out what's the dress code there. What is everybody wearing? That's an easy ask, and then you're prepared. So then once you get in the room, you're all ready to go. You're ready to close the deal, get hired. You've done everything you need to do to get there. Big reminder, you've spent all of this time preparing and all of this effort, and you're ready to go. Remember that it's up to you when you get in that room, and you might be in a boardroom with a CEO, a CFO, and a COO of a publicly traded company, all very powerful people. And you need to be the HMFIC at that meeting, though, because it's your presentation. So remember, you control the flow of the meeting, control the tempo of the meeting, control the topics that are being discussed at said meeting. I've oftentimes walked into a room with many powerful people who are like immediately off the bat, well, talk about this. And I just politely say, look, I've put together this deck in an order with purpose for a reason, and we're going to get to that. And then at the end, if there's anything else you want to discuss, which I already know there's not going to be anything else there is to discuss because I've already done my pre-meeting needs analysis call. But if there happens to be, ask them that at the end, but ask them very politely to just let you be in charge of the flow of the meeting, because if you've done this the way I've told you to do this thing, you're going to have prepared something that is well thought out and organized and benefits everyone sitting in the room the highest level possible. So control the tempo and the topics that are discussed and what order they are discussed. And then say thank you and close that deal. You badass MFers. I love you all. Thanks for listening today. I hope you learned something new. Reach out anytime with questions. And thanks for always being a part of another episode of Trucking On. All right.
I need someone to help me find a brand new attitude. I need someone to lend me a little bit of latitude. I wish someone would tell me what the hell I'm supposed to do. Then the voice in my gut kicked me in the butt and said, I'm the only one you need to listen to. Then my soul told me I'm the only one to listen to. And I'm trucking on. And I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line. Another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on. I tried to run away like a freight train with no track. I tried to escape like a convict leaving Alcatraz. I prayed every day for a cachet I could never have. My bad decisions catalyzed the best ideas I've ever had. Bad decisions catalyzed the best ideas I've ever had. And I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line. Another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on. Yeah. So much shame when I share my little lies. No one left to blame until I stare into these eyes. I'm gonna tell the truth to you till I break on through to the other side. Living like I'm gonna die is the only time I feel alive. Living like I'm gonna die is the only time I feel alive. And I'm trucking on.